I saw a video on what a Jew did to a Catholic nun in Israel, and it was a Jewish channel, and they were, discussing it about how it was wrong, and how, what they did with the cross of Jesus, and which, by the way, was a Catholic cross, because the Protestant crosses do not have Jesus on them. Now, I know that Jew did that to Jesus' face, I think a sledgehammer or something. That isn't right. That's rare. But yeah, so that Jew did that to that nun in that particular time, at that other time, and then they were saying how they cut it, and they didn't see the after, where another Jew came to the rescue of the nun, but they were trying to make it look bad on the it was like a Hasidic Jew, ones with the curls. I don't know what they're called, but anyway, the black suit and the hat. So anyway, I made a comment, and because I don't want them to, and these are Jews on the channel talking about this, and they were saying how that's really bad and everything, but what I said in the comment is I wanted to explain to them that the general public, Jew and Gentile, don't all know about the bad history between the Catholics and the Jews. The educated Jews, like that Hasidic Jew, or whatever they're called, where he's a observant religious Jew, he's not a secular Jew, he probably knows. And there's museums over there in Israel talking about this kind of history between the Christians, if they call the Catholics Christians, or even the Protestants, maybe, I don't know. But I just was saying how if they could educate their audience on why the Jews would hate the Catholics, and like I've been told years ago that the Catholics, and this was by a Christian channel, they weren't dogging anybody, they weren't dogging on the Catholics or anything, but they just were making a statement that the Catholics own a lot of the holy sites over there in Israel, which to me, I find that offensive, but not that the Jews care about Jesus. Anyway, there's nobody that should own anything of Israel over there except the Jews. So Catholics, to me, I don't think should own any of that, but they do. So I don't even know why. But my point is that when a Jew is upset about, here's a stoplight, Bob, about anything of the Catholics, is because, now I don't know a lot of the bad history except for the Crusaders. I don't like that cross. I don't wear that Crusaders cross. I know it's a Christian type thing, but that got all muddled, and that was probably a lot of Catholicism in that. And but the one thing I do know, I'm pretty sure, is that the Catholics are what brought replacement theology, meaning if you don't know what that is, you just look it up. So that's horrible. It's horrible. And then if you want to watch my last post with Eric Stackelbeck, you're going to see the Pope, what he did. So, like I've said before, there are a lot of Catholics who don't know anything really about their Pope, other than we got to kiss his feet or kiss his finger or something. They're just trying to live a godly life. I hope they read the Bible, but I doubt it. They think that the priest has to read it for them. and everything. So there's just a lot of bad things that, yes, Daddy's here. Ooh. And I think that it would be fair, more fair, if instead of just saying bad Jew, why'd you do that? I would do both sides. I would say that was bad, and if you do attack Jesus, you are attacking the Protestant Christians. But we don't put Jesus on the cross because Jesus came down from the cross, right? That's why you'll never see a Protestant wearing a cross with Jesus on it, because the Catholics keep putting Jesus on the cross. I don't know why. They just think that it's a religious symbol, that because that's what he did. But he came off of that cross. Praise God. Thank you, Jesus. And he so he came off the cross, and he's alive, and he's now seated at the right hand of the Father. He's no longer on that cross. We don't need to keep drudging that up. Neither as a Protestant Christian do we need to keep putting him on the cross again and again and again, which we do because we're human, but we're always fighting against that, to keep putting him on the cross. He did it once, okay? All right, then, so yeah, I think it would only be fair if people would explain to people why Jews, some Jews that know about the history of Catholics, why they're doing that, why they don't like Catholics, okay? And I don't blame them, really. And I'm, like I said, I'm not against. Okay, so if you want to use your brain and understand what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. And then something else I see, sometimes channels that are pro-Trump, they're Christian, etc., etc. And then I haven't watched my regular channels in a few days. It seems like a long time. But anyway, but here and there, past few days, I'll watch a couple here and there, but not like every single one of them. But anyway, sometimes I'll notice they're pro-Trump and they're Christians, or they're Jews, and pro-Trump, but and I'm all for critical thinking. They're analyzing the Iran thing. They're doing pros and cons. They're having guests on about like ex-military specialists and stuff. And they're also bringing in like the geopolitical parts of it. And, you know, that's all fine and good. But sometimes they're getting a little scary, you know. They start getting like scared, like, oh, but it could turn this way, or it could turn that. Oh, with that doesn't look good with China. And then now look, they're rolling out the red carpet for China. So they will say some things that they're worried about. Is Trump getting cold feet? Not that term, but you know, they're acting like, well, what's going on? You can't pull out, and it has reminded me of them in the wilderness for 40 years. You know, if you keep, it reminds me of King David in Psalms. He says, I muse upon all you've done, Lord. It's like we have 5-minute memories, and they want to jump to the next worry, jump to the next catastrophe, jump to the next what if. Stop. I think they should stop, because, I mean, what is it? Just feeding consumers to watch? I mean, so that they can get worried or scared, or, you know, bomb them now, get it done, da-da-da. Trump has to be methodical. He can't rush this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. If people don't want to think about the main thing, which is God put Trump in this because God knows what Trump is made of. This is God's war, and God knows what he's doing, and God's hand is on Trump, and God chose Trump. And if you don't want to think of the blessings, like we're the ones who finally did it. We're the ones who finally are getting it done. You don't want to think about the blessings. Instead, you're thinking them again and again. Oh, but what if that... Listen, Trump has to live here too once his 4 years is up. Trump wants this done too. Do you think he's going to half-ass do this? God wouldn't have put him in there. He's not a half-ass kind of guy. That's why God put him in there. Trump is a laser-focused beast. Not that kind of beast. He is a machine that can't do it the bad way. He only does it one way, and that's the right way. And if people want to keep casting little shadows and casting little cares and what ifs, and forgetting the main thing, and instead of musing upon the miracle of all this, then that is what they did in the wilderness. That's why now I'm not saying we're going to stay in the wilderness, regardless of you naysayers and you panicans. I'm not saying they're panicans, but they mildly say these things like they're thinking critically. And I'm all for critical thinking, but you need to go back around like King David does. King David, in the end, he goes, but I trust you, God. You know, they need to go back in the end after all that critiquing, and they need to say, but hey, God put Trump in, and there's no back pedaling. This will never go in reverse. Bubs, come. There's a car coming. Waddling along. Yeah. And Willy Wonka here. All right. Sorry. Thank you. Well, it's a crosswalk anyway. I mean, yeah, so that's okay, but as long as it gets swung back around at the very end where they say, you know what? This is a miracle in itself that we've even come to this point of attacking the snake's head. It's a miracle in itself that, and you know, just go back to the points. Trump has to live here too. Trump isn't going to undo this. Trump isn't the type to get cold feet. Trump has a lot of things on the chessboard here. He's got a lot of countries. Cuba and Mexico or something probably are next. You know, you can't focus on one little subject of this country or that country and not do your critical thinking with the whole world of it, and then the whole plan in the conversation, and also without having circled back around at the end of the conversation of saying, but you know what, this is a miracle and this is going to get done because God started it. It has never been done. It has never been done since Iran came a cesspool of demons. It has never been done. And so circle right back around. Otherwise, somebody's going to end up in the wilderness for 40 years because of murmuring, complaining, doubt, casting doubt. Now you've cast doubt on everyone who's watching you, except me. But, I mean, it just sounds so carnal to me is all I'm saying. It sounds so carnal and worldly thinking. Because what were the Israelites doing? They were thinking worldly. They're like, I want Egypt back. I want my meat back. I want that. Well, God gave them meat, and he killed them right while it was in their mouth, chewing it. So when this is all said and done, and we get what we want, because God is giving us what we want, which is crushing Satan's head, that is, we we're doing what is Genesis 3:16. Jesus is doing Genesis 3:16. We're crushing. Jesus is doing it. Jesus is crushing the head of the snake. Wow. Wow. So I would just like to encourage people to be careful not to do what the Egyptians, not to do what the Israelites did. Hang on, Bob, I'm almost done. Not to do what the Egyptians did, complaining, murmuring. They didn't trust God. They had manna, for crying out loud. They had a miracle coming down from heaven, angel food. And yet, so just try to remember that. I'm not saying don't be like the Jews, because they're so bad. No, what I'm saying is, don't be so carnal to where you're always thinking of, and you got a 5-minute memory over God's miracles, and you're always going to go back into carnality. Go back, but I forgot about those miracles. No, be like King David, where he mused upon all God had done, because he didn't want to forget about it. Okay? So, yeah. Anyway, I think I made a comment on my own channel about that, the 40 years instead of, because they weren't focusing on the miracle. They were focusing on, we don't got this, cucumbers and leeks and quail. Yeah, we can't do that. And you have to keep reminding at the end that this is a miracle. Trump is the best president this country has ever had, probably besides Lincoln or something. And if you keep up doing this and keep trying to worry about something, you're drudging up stuff to worry about that you're not even focusing on the miracle. 1, 2, you're drudging up stuff that isn't even a complete story because you're not considering all the other countries involved or all the other straits. There's like the Caspian Sea, and then there's this other thing around in there. So you're not looking at the whole chessboard, and it's not good. And I don't say this out of criticism. I say this out of, I want to save you from losing a blessing and maybe getting chastened. And not only that, so if you don't care, and that's just, then don't listen to me. But I'm just telling you that's what I see. And if you don't care and you don't agree, then fine, be that way. I don't care. It's your life, and whatever. You're held accountability type thing, because you got accountability for the people that watch you and whom you are influencing to, let's now shift our focus over here on doubt. That's not a good thing to do to people. You got to shift their focus back to faith, and back to the blessings, back to the miracles. That's what our job to do is. Okay, bye. God bless you guys. Praying for everybody. Alrighty, bye.